Hello there. My name is Allie, and welcome to my weekly paint along. So I do these live demos every Monday at 5 Eastern, and I teach a little sample. We do like a little 8x10 sample every week. And you are actually catching the final paint along of the season. So I'm taking the month of July off, and I will be back again in August. So this is the last one for a little while. But some good news is that you can actually catch all of the previous paint-alongs right on my Facebook page, Allie K Studio. You can also find them on my YouTube channel. So if you aren't painting with me right now, or maybe you're just finding me and you didn't know about this, you guys can use this time coming up in July, while I'll be taking some time off, to catch up on some previous paint-alongs. So I see a lot of people jumping into the demo here, and please say hi in the comments. Let everyone know where you are watching from. It's always fun to see that. It's also fun to see if you are painting with me. I always love to hear if you are painting live with me. And I should probably explain how this works, because I know we always have some new people. So these demos are free to watch, but I also put together a outlines template for you to download, which you can do on my website for $10, and that gives you these outlines that are on my panel here. So it's a sheet that you can print out on your home printer, and then you can use some transfer paper or just like color or chalk the back of it to transfer the lines onto your panel so that you are ready to go for the demo. And then one more step that we do before the demo is I have you just paint over these outlines to cover up the pencil marks. Let's see. Hi, Kathy. Kathy says, yes, need to catch up. Oh, these comments are going by quickly. I missed the rest of it, Kathy. I'll have to come back and check that. Hi, Deborah. Yeah, so you guys have a little bit of time to catch up next month. But for now, let's get into this final paint along. So we've been doing this cocktail series, the summer cocktail series. And so today is the Island Sip paint along. And I wish I could tell you guys what this cocktail is, but I don't really know. It's an image I found on Unsplash, which is a free to use photo sharing website where I get a lot of my reference images. So I don't know too much about it, but it looks delicious. Hi, KT. KT said can't get the permanent dark violet. Okay, yeah, let's go over that one more time. So Golden is having a little bit of an issue with distribution on some of their colors. They're having trouble finding some of the pigments. So permanent dark violet, which I use a lot, is one of them, but you can make a similar color using quinacridone magenta with a little bit of blue. You could either use phthalo blue, which we use a lot in my classes, just a speck of it, or you could use ultramarine blue. But the key is having that quinacridone magenta. That's a great color, and I just bought some yesterday, so I know you can still get it. So hopefully that's helpful. All right, so let's jump in and get started on this demo. All right, guys, I'm gonna move in the camera here, get you a little closer so you can see my reference image and my palette. So that is the cool cocktail that we're working on today. Let's see, that looks pretty good. Sometimes the video gets cropped, and so I want to make sure you can see everything. That looks pretty good. All right. Okay, so here we go. So I am using Golden Fluid Acrylics, as I mentioned, and I painted over my outlines. I used a skinny little script liner brush like this, and I made a light purple from Payne's Gray, Alizarin Crimson, and white. And I'm just going to pull up purple from, oh, you guys can hear me. I'm pulling up my demo here on my laptop so I can see your comments. All right, now I can do a better job following along with you. Hi, Mary. Hi, Laura in Virginia. All right, so we're going to kick it off by starting to wash in the shadows. So we've got the outlines on there, And we're going to use the same recipe I always use. We're going to use Payne's Gray and Alizarin Crimson mixed together, which makes kind of a dull purple. And we're going to water that down quite a bit. And we're going to start looking for the shadows. So we're not thinking about the color. We're just going to look at light and dark and start washing that in. So I'm just going to kind of compare which side of the line is light, which side of the line is dark. So why don't we just start by putting this dark straw in, since I know that that's going to be something dark. We're not going to put it in as dark as what it actually is, because this is just like our first pass of dark. We're going to build up our darks a little bit more later. But the whole straw isn't dark. You see how there's a bright reflection on it? So it kind of skips right there, and then the inside of it becomes dark. And then if we move into the drink, we've got some dark tones here that I can see. So I'm just going to gradually wash those in. And then if I look at the right side of the drink, this is very bright and there's a dark shape in the background. I don't know if this is like a pineapple or something. That's kind of what it looks like in the background. But we're just going to kind of paint that in as like abstract shapes. We're not going to try to make it look just like a pineapple, because that would kind of take away from our cocktail here. So we've catch that. Looking to see where some of these other dark shapes are, kind of in between those chunks. And you don't have to be exact, especially with these background shapes, because we don't really know what is correct. We've got a dark piece here. Let's see, Dawn says, I'm painting and melting here in British Columbia. Yeah, it is, it's been hot, huh? And Dawn, you're awesome. You're always painting with me. I love it. I love seeing all your work. I think I saw all of the cocktails that you've painted so far. They looked really good together as a collection. I'm glad we started doing these like series, because it's fun to see them all together. And these little 8x10 paintings are so quick that, you know, it's not a big undertaking just to knock one out in an hour or so. Some of you spend a little bit longer, but it shouldn't take days. These are just little paintings. They're quickies. So that's why I make them small. I don't want you guys to be intimidated by them. Okay, got a dark edge on this side of that slice there. And so I talked about how the right side of the drink was light, the background was dark. Now over on the left side, the drink is going to be a little bit darker and the background is light, so it flips. So we're just trying to pay attention to which side is light, which side is dark, not worrying about the color. Need to make a little bit more of my recipe there. I'm not worried if I'm making it exactly the same, because that doesn't really matter. It's usually more interesting to not have it be exactly the same. So I'm gonna fill in a little bit more of the drink, I think. Just making sure I leave that bright edge there. And then we kind of put some shading in here along these shapes. I don't really know what this is either, but we're just gonna bring a little attention there. Just some indication of something going on in the background. And yeah, with the table here, I guess we've got a dark edge, and then we've got like some reflections on the tabletop that we'll kind of gradually put in there. And it's pretty dark right here. Over on the right side, we'll put a little bit of tone there. There's the left side. We'll put a little bit of toning in there, but it's pretty bright over there. And this drink is like sitting on a coaster, which has a dark edge down along the bottom here. So I'm gonna catch that. And then there's like a reflection of the drink kind of on the tabletop. The tabletop must be like some kind of a mirror shape. And then it gets a little bit more challenging in the stem here. So we're not going to try to put every little shape in, but I'm just trying to look like for the major forms, like big areas where I see dark and light. So I guess this chunk right here is kind of a dark shape. Really trying to generalize this so that it doesn't get too busy, too hard to follow. Sometimes things that are reflective, like glass, it can become a lot. It can kind of get you a little confused. So we try to just stay as simple as we can with these reflective shapes. We'll put a little toning in here on the ice. And I guess the background is darker here than the table. See, here the tabletop is dark, the background's light. Here the tabletop is light, the background is a bit darker. So that's how we're separating it, and we're like looking at how it flips. Okay, so that is our first pass of wash. And now we are going to do what we always do after the first pass. We're going to come back with a second round and push the dark areas darker. So same two colors, Alizarin Crimson and Payne's Gray. Now it will have less water. And we're going to look for those areas that we see as a notch darker. So we will look, and right off the bat, I see that this chunk of background behind the drink here is pretty dark. So I'm going to push that darker. And I see there's this other chunk that's pretty dark in the background. A little bit right there. And then the straw, of course, is about equally as dark for most of it. We do have kind of like a highlighted edge on the straw, but I'm not going to worry about that right now because that's a little too much detail. So we're just trying to get the basic shape of the straw. We've got that reflection up at the top that we're leaving white because that's going to be pretty bright there. And then moving into the drink, the darkest part is kind of right here up towards the top in the center. It's pretty dark. We've got a dark edge around the lime slice there. Hi, Carrie. Thanks for joining us. All right, moving along, we're going to push this a little darker right there. The tip of the leaf is kind of dark here. And the tabletop edge, because I guess that tabletop is probably picking up a reflection from that pineapple shape in the background. That's probably why it's so dark right there. And also right here. And we've got this pretty dark piece right at the base of the stem here that I'm catching. Couple of extra little dark areas in the base here. And then again, we're gonna push the bottom edge of that coaster one more time because that's pretty dark in the reference image. So we're just kind of building up that dark color. I guess we've got a little dark shape in the background over here that we'll push a little bit more. And maybe like the bottom part of the glass here, pump that up a little more too. There's kind of this lighter shape along the edge there, so I'm gonna make it darker next to it to make that look a little bit lighter. Down at the bottom of the glass is kind of dark before, I guess that bright highlight starts right about there. All right, so I think we're almost finished with our underpainting values. kind of just finding light and dark. Another little tip I like to give if you're kind of following with this technique on your own pieces is it's a good idea when you're just looking at values to look at your image in grayscale, because then you don't get distracted by the color. So if you just make it all black and white or grayscale, then you can really focus on what's light and what's dark without getting kind of confused by the color, because that doesn't matter right now. All that matters is light versus dark. And now we want all of this underpainting wash to be dry before we move on to the next step, and it's getting there, it's getting pretty dry. So the next step will be to add in a wash of a complementary color. So I don't always do like the true complement or the true opposite on the color wheel is another way to put it. I kind of play around a little bit and kind of use what I feel like I want to use, but basically what I do is I remember to keep it a cool color as an underpainting if it's going to be a warm tone, and I put a warm tone down for an underpainting if it's going to be a cool tone. This painting is all fairly cool. The green is kind of a warm green, and we've also got a few little bits of warm tone in the background. But for the most part, like all the whites and grays that we see in here, they're all pretty cool. So I think we're mostly going to use warm colors as the underpainting. Kay is asking, where can we find the recorded paintings and where to order the patterns? Kay, you can find those all on my website, Allie K Studio. There is a tab under instruction for paint-alongs, so you can find all the downloads there. And the download includes a link to the replay, but you can also just go on my Facebook page to find all those replays. They're just under the video section. You can find all of them. So those are free to watch as replays. You just need to pay for the downloads if you want to do the paint along. So hopefully that helps. Okay, let's do our wash. So I think I want to use, for the areas of green, I want to use quinacridone magenta because I love that color, and I mentioned it before that this is a color you can use mixed with blue to make your permanent dark violet if you can't find permanent dark violet. So I'm just going to show you this lovely color that is one of my favorites as an underpainting. So I am just washing this in with my big number 9 brush, and I'm being loose about it. I'm going to go over everything I see that's like green or yellow. So the drink, I'm gonna leave the ice, I think, because that's more of that cool tone. But I might do something a little different. But I'm gonna do like the stem. Oh, am I gonna do the stem? Maybe not. Oh, let's just go for it. We're gonna do the base of it with this magenta color. And we'll put it, we're gonna put it in the background too where we see the green. You know what, let's just do this whole corner of the background. I don't like to have my underpaintings be too busy, so I usually just do like 2, maybe 3 different colors in the underpainting. So I do kind of generalize a little bit. Like sometimes I might just paint a whole area in with that underpainting color. Again, this is quinacridone magenta from Golden. Just watered down. Okay, and now let's think about what we want to do for the table, the rest of the background, and we're gonna do that all pretty warm, like I mentioned. What do we want to do? I think some of it I'm gonna do my burnt orange recipe, and that is Alizarin Crimson and Hansa Yellow Opaque, but I'm not gonna do everything that color, but I'll show you that color. Alizarin Crimson, Hansa Yellow Opaque. It makes a nice kind of dark orange. It dulls it down a little bit because the Alizarin Crimson is a little bit more of a more browned out red versus like an intense like fire truck red. So I'm gonna put this over here in the background. I use this color a lot in underpaintings. I'm putting it on really thin because I don't want it to get too dark because my background is all pretty light, except for like those areas that we washed in really dark. So you kind of want your underpainting wash to be similar in value to your overpainting colors. You don't want to make it super dark if the overpainting is going to be light. I'm just gonna put this in between here. Maybe just to keep it simple, we'll put this burnt orange, we'll put this everywhere else. That'll just make it easy. We don't have to get too carried away here. We'll put that over the ice. So you can see mine's like starting to drip here and there, but I just kind of work quickly and kind of catch those drips and keep moving. I need to make a little bit more of my mixture here. Alizarin Crimson and Hansa Yellow Opaque. There we go. So basically what we're trying to do is just like cover up. We don't want to have any white because I don't like white on my canvas. I think it helps me to feel like the painting is more complete by not having any of that white panel showing through. So I'm working on wood panels. I should mention that. I don't like working on canvas. So these are birch wood panels that I get pre-made. I think I get these from either Dick Blick or Jerry's. I can't remember which one. Now I'd like to go back to my areas of magenta and push it a little bit darker in the places that I know it's going to be a little bit darker. So like this, the main part of the glass, I feel like that's gonna be a little bit darker. So I'm just gonna do another pass of that magenta, kind of intensify that color a little bit or a lot of it. I think I put it on pretty watered down. So we're just gonna pump that up a little bit in the areas where we see that it's going to be darker. So that leaf's kind of dark, the center of the glass is kind of dark. You see how you just get like a much richer color by pushing that a little bit further. And I guess in the background too, we've got some places that, you know, feel more like that dark green. You can see how I'm just like going right over those outlines. So ultimately I want those outlines that we put down and traced over, we want those to kind of disappear. So by layering all these colors on top and not staying really close to the edges, that helps to kind of dissolve those outlines. All right, that feels pretty good. I'll put a little bit more down in the bottom here just to kind of tie that in. Okay. And now let's actually go back with another pass of the Alizarin Crimson and Hansa Yellow Opaque. We're just gonna push that a little bit darker in a few places too. I feel like I was kind of light with my underpainting washes today. I guess I did that because I know that the painting's not gonna be very dark, but I think I need to go just a bit darker. So I'm gonna make more of that Alizarin Crimson Payne's Gray, and we're gonna push that in the places we see that are a little bit darker in the underpainting. Because we want to add some color there. Go a little bit more at the edge there. And I think we're just about good then. Okay, and then again, we want this to be bright. We want this to be totally dry once again before we go in and start putting the color on top, because we don't want these colors to mix in with the colors that we're gonna lay on top of them. So I'm kind of scooping up anything wet that I have here. I always say, you know, if I was doing this on my own without you guys watching, without kind of having like a time crunch, I'd probably step away for 5 minutes and just kind of make sure that it all dries up. But we can just kind of push this a little bit and get started, at least in the areas that are dry, which are kind of the magenta areas, I think are pretty much dry. So there we go. So now, now that we're starting on top of the underpainting, we are going to start thinning with glazing medium. So I'm using Liquitex matte medium, but you can use any brand. I'm not picky about that. But this is how we're going to thin our paint down now instead of using the water. And the difference is that the medium kind of keeps like the body of the paint, the consistency, but it makes it more transparent. So that is why you would use it. All right, so I think I'm gonna grab my number 5 brush to start putting this color in. And yeah, let's start with putting some of that green in there. So we're gonna start by kind of making like the slightly darker green, kind of the mid-tone. We're not gonna make the super darkest one, but we're gonna start with this mid-tone. And we'll make that with, let's see, we're gonna use Hansa Yellow Opaque, and we're going to use a little tiny bit of Phthalo Green Blue shade. And then we're gonna tone it down using some Pyrrole Red Light. Ooh, that was too much Pyrrole Red. Let's see, Rockin' Art Wendy asked, are you working with acrylics? Yes, I am. These are golden fluid acrylics. So that's why the paint is drying pretty quick for me. That's what I like to use. All right, we dulled this green down a little too much. I need to add a little bit more green in there. Add a little bit of glazing medium. So I put a little too much of the Pyrrole Red in there. So again, it was Pyrrole Red Light, Hansa Yellow Opaque, and Phthalo Green Blue shade. Yeah, I got a little carried away with my Pyrrole Red. It was a little bit dried up, so I just kind of stuck my brush in there really hard, and I ended up getting a lot of it. All right, so I added some glaze in there, and we're going to start kind of putting this olive green color in here. So I want to make sure I'm going to leave some of my fun magenta color in there. So we don't want to cover it all up. I'm leaving little bits of that magenta poking through. Less is more when you're first starting to put this color down. So don't get carried away with covering everything up. I love that magenta. All right. So we see a little bit of this mid-tone green up here, the top of the glass, and where else? Put a little bit right there. And then we see it on the leaf. It's so easy to accidentally cover up all the magenta. So just reminding you along the way. And then we have some in the background here too. And I might thin my paint a little bit more too. I think when we do that next pass of green, that's gonna help to really start pulling out the tones, but we're gonna start with this kind of darker mid-tone green first, and then we'll bring out those brighter greens, which will start to give it a lot more dimension, but we have to build up this base first for those colors. And you probably notice I'm not doing any blending. I'm just laying these colors down and kind of letting them be. We're not trying to scrub this color into what's there already. We're just laying it down and not overworking it. All right. Okay. Now I want to go in and we're going to make that brighter green. So that's going to be quite a bit brighter. So I'm actually going to clean my brush off. I'm going to move to a new spot on my palette because this new brighter green is not going to have nearly as much of that pyrrole red in it. So we're going to make that over here. So this is going to be Hansa Yellow Opaque, a little speck of phthalo green blue shade. And we need more Hansa Yellow. Maybe more. I'm gonna need to get more. I really like Hansa Yellow Opaque because it packs a lot of punch for being a yellow paint. A lot of times yellow is a very transparent color, but the opaque is pretty good. And now we're just gonna put a speck of that pyrrole red in just to dull it down, kind of take the edge off of this color not being so neon, but it's just gonna be a speck of it because we actually do want this color to be pretty bright. And then I'm gonna get myself some more glaze. Put a little bit of that in there. And we're gonna find that bright edge. And you see how I covered up my outline there? I went right over it because I want this to kind of dissolve that outline. And just putting that dash of this bright color, it starts to give form to the glass right there. We see some more of that picking up over here along the rim, and kind of have some light kind of piercing through this leaf here, so that's got some bright tones in there. And our lime looks actually pretty yellow there, but part of that I think is from the filter that I put on this photo because I like to filter my photos before painting them. Sometimes it makes the colors a little bit weird, sometimes it makes colors awesome, but I think I'm gonna make this lime a little bit more on the lime tone than what I see there with the yellow. I might make it a little more yellow later, but we're just gonna use this lime green for right now, right there. And I see a bright chunk of this along the edge of our dark straw there, which helps to make that dark straw feel brighter. I'm gonna put some on the other side too. I mean the dark straw feel darker, sorry, I just caught myself. The dark straw needs to feel darker. Where else do we want to drop some of these little bright chunks in? A little bit right there. All right, good for right now. Maybe I'll put a little bit right there. Okay, now I want to drop a little bit of it down in the bottom of the glass. I don't really see a lot of it, but I just feel like I want to tie some of that color down. So I'm just going to force it. And I guess we've got some little bits of it over here in the background. We might as well put that in too. It's like a party in the background. Okay. Now that I put that bright chunk in, I feel like my first color I could have added a little bit more of. I'm gonna go back to it and just cover up a little bit more of my magenta there. You can always cover up more. It's hard to bring the magenta back. Okay, so now let's put in the darkest green tone, which is like almost black right here, but then it kind of gets warmer and dissolves out a little bit. We're gonna make that new dark green from, let's see, Payne's Gray Blue shade, and a little bit of Hansa Yellow Opaque, and then we're gonna use Alizarin Crimson. So Alizarin Crimson, phthalo green blue shade, enhance the yellow opaque. That's gonna be pretty dark. And we're gonna start with that darkest tone. I'm gonna put a little bit of Glazing Medium in there. That's gonna make a real nice dark green. And we'll drop that in right here. You can see how much darker that is than the original color we've laid down. So we're kind of building up this gradient of tone. And it creates like steps. And we might put like a few more different tones in between there, but for right now, we're just getting the most important stuff in there. I'm gonna use this dark for the edge of my line, but I'm gonna switch down to a smaller brush because I won't be able to get that in, I don't think. With my number 5, I'm gonna go down to a number 3. And excuse my head if it's in front of the camera. I'm just gonna catch that edge. Okay. Maybe we'll use this to put some dark in the background too. I feel like that's more of like a brown dark, and this, what we have right now is more of this green dark, but we're just gonna use it to push it dark for right now. We can push it more towards a brown later if we have time, but right now we're just gonna make sure we get that nice and dark. All right. Now, let's start putting in some of the highlights in the background and on the table. So I'm going to kind of make like a grayed out blue. So I'm going to use titanium white, Payne's gray, which is really like navy blue. And maybe I'll just use those two to start out with. I'm gonna add a little bit of Glazing Medium in there, and I'm just gonna start pulling out those highlights. And by starting with this color that is kind of darker by putting the Payne's gray in there, that gives me room to brighten it up by adding more white. So you have to give yourself some room to work. If I went in with straight white right away, then I'd have nowhere to go. Hi Elena, you're in Miami visiting family, paint next week. All right, I'm gonna hold you to it. I love seeing your pieces. Okay, so we're gonna start kind of putting this in the background, and we are going to not worry about, or we are going to try to remember to leave little bits of that underpainting showing. Sorry guys, I'm losing my words today. It's like it's the final paint along of this season, and I guess it's clear that I need a little break. But you guys have been great. We've been doing these every week, like since I think Thanksgiving. I took like maybe 2 weeks off in January. I don't remember, maybe it was only 1, but it's been really consistent, and so many of you have joined me for like almost all of them. I've been blown away by your participation. And I get to see everybody's paintings because we have a Facebook group called Allie's Paint Friends. It's a free group. If you're not in there, you should go check it out. And that's where everybody posts the work that they do in these paint-alongs. So it's really fun to see after the demo. It's fun to see everyone's piece and how they all look a little bit different, but then they also look a lot alike too. It's really interesting. So again, this color that I'm using is Payne's gray and white. I'm just kind of finding those highlights in the background and leaving little bits of magenta. Kathy says, we have loved it. Thank you. You're welcome, Kathy. I like seeing what you do too. You guys are amazing. Such loyal followers I have. It's pretty amazing. All right. And I'm not going to try to get like every little window of light exactly the same because that is not that important. We're just kind of getting the general feel. Again, I'm leaving that underpainting showing. I'm gonna use this to start building up that highlight on my straw here. I'm gonna get pretty specific with the shape of the straw. We don't wanna mess around with that. I guess we've got the highlight here. So I've talked about this before, how like I'll be pretty loosey-goose when it comes to things that don't really matter, like, you know, the background shapes or this or that. But when it comes to like getting the shape of the straw just right, we kind of need to be pretty specific about that. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I've said it before, it's like this game I'm playing, like this push and pull, where sometimes it'll be very specific, and then other places I just kind of let it run wild. And I do the same thing in my portraits. So like when it comes to like very specific features in the face, like the shape of the nose or the eyes, I get very meticulous about identifying those really accurately, so that it looks like the person that I'm painting. But then, like, you know, when it comes to their hair or their clothes, like, then I just kind of go nuts and have fun with the brush strokes and, you know, let the painting be a painting and be fun. So a little bit about my portrait technique, which I've been talking a lot about portraits lately because I have my brand new online course, Features and Faces, that launched about a week and a half ago. And the intro enrollment ends this Thursday. So if you want to check that course out and get the intro pricing, you have to enroll by this Thursday. And then you get access to it for a full year. So if you have a busy summer, busy schedule right now, you can still go in and get your intro pricing for that course and then do it when you have time. But it's a great course. I'm extremely proud of it. And I'm also excited at how many of you have already started. A lot of you have already started the course. You're already showing me samples from it. You guys are so amazing. And that, again, that course is called Features and Faces. You can find that on my website, LAK Studio. All right, so I'm still using the same color here, guys. This is Payne's Gray and White. Just continuing to build up. A lot of this painting is kind of like this neutral grayish white color, so I'm using quite a bit of this right now. And then, like I said, I'm going to push it brighter in some areas after I've kind of got like this basic layer down. And I'm using my number 5 brush, so I'm able to kind of fill in some pretty big areas at one time because I've got a lot of paint on my brush. All right. Okay, so now, like I said, let's take it a notch brighter, but actually before I do, I want to put some of this color up where the ice is up here. We want to pop some cool tones in there just to start giving some feel to that area, making that start to look kind of like ice. Okay, so now all right, sorry everyone if you just got like a weird pause. I was getting a phone call. So yeah, sorry about that. I do these live demos using my phone, so that's what happened there. All right, so we added more white to the Payne's Gray, and we're going to start just dropping in the brighter areas. This still isn't straight white. Still has some of that Payne's Gray in it. But it's definitely a notch brighter than what we had before. And you see, if I have a big area of this color, I'm not doing like a whole bunch of little hash marks. I'm just kind of putting it in one swoop. And that's what gives us kind of those bold, dramatic brush strokes. I want to make sure that the shape outside edge of the glass doesn't get wonky. So that's kind of one of those areas again where you want it to be pretty good and symmetrical, because if your glass does not look symmetrical, that's kind of that dead giveaway that something is not quite right. It's pretty bright on the coaster here. Might need to get my smaller brush. We'll see. Just looking for those brightest areas. And I'm going to pick up this bright bit below the edge of the coaster. We just have a tiny bit of it there and right here. And then that's going to show this, the stem of the glass kind of reflecting onto the surface. All right. And we'll put some of this bright white in the background. Wait, it's not straight white. It's white in Payne's gray, but it's brighter than what we had before, so I'm just calling it bright. Pretty bright up here. I'm looking for those little windows of light showing through. And I'm not covering up all my fun magenta. Got some bright chunks of this color on the ice here. There's a lot of fun shapes going on in this piece. All right, now let's move on to our next color, but it's starting to look like our image, I think. So let's do like this dark shadow that's on the tabletop, because right now we just have like this weird brown blob. So we kind of started in the middle and we made it brighter. Now we're gonna pick a color that's darker than this first tone. So we're going to do Payne's gray and white, but it's also a little bit purple. And since many of us can't get the permanent violet dark, I'm going to use some of the quinacridone magenta to make that purple tone. So it's Payne's gray, quinacridone magenta, and white is how we're going to make our purple for right now. I'm going to add a little bit of glazing medium in there to thin it out. I'm going to scrape the edge of my brush on my palette to kind of offload it. And then I'm going to catch those dark areas here on the reflective tabletop. Got a dark chunk right here. And I think I need kind of like a mid-tone because this is so dark and this is so much lighter. So I'm actually gonna add some white to it now and lighten it up a bit. I'm gonna pick a new spot on my palette, maybe add a little bit more magenta. So it's a little bit more of a pinky purple tone. And I'm gonna use that to kind of bridge the gap there between those dark shadows and some of the lighter areas. So I'm not blending these colors together, I'm just bridging the gap. I'm just putting something in between at the edge that's going to make it not such a big transition. And then I see some of this over here. Just kind of like roughen up that edge a little bit. We'll use that for that reflection there. Now I'm gonna add a little more white to it for the little shadows over on the left side there, because those are still even lighter. And we'll just drop some of those shadows in. We'll put some of this in the background too. These colors are all kind of bouncing around each other. So the colors that show up in the background also show up in the foreground. We're gonna put a little bit of this purple tone in the ice here. Drop that in. All right. That's looking good. Now I want to brighten the highlights on my green cocktail. Really kind of pull those out a little bit brighter. Like this green edge needs to be a lot more intense. So we're going to make a new green. It's going to be Hansa Yellow Opaque, little bit of Phthalo Green Blue shade, just a little bit, and some white. I don't think we're gonna put any Pyrrole Red in there this time, because the Pyrrole Red was what kind of dulled it down. We're not gonna put any of that in now. So it's just going to be Hansa Yellow, Phthalo Green, and white. But it's gonna be hardly any of the Phthalo Green, mostly the Hansa Yellow and white. A little tiny bit of that Phthalo Green will totally tint your color. Okay, so this is definitely brighter than what we had down so far. See how much brighter that is? So this is gonna really pop that edge out. I'm gonna get a little bit on the rim here. And we're gonna put some of that in our lime, but I need a smaller brush for that. Get down to my smaller brush. My 3 might not be small enough, we'll see. So we can see the brightest areas in the lime are kind of like these little triangle shapes in the center. And the bright part doesn't go all the way around. On the right side of the lime, it's still kind of dark. That's starting to give us a little color in there. Now the highlights in the leaf are a little bit more of a cool green, but for the sake of time, I'm just gonna brighten it up with the same lime green that we've got there. We've got some of these bright bits in the background, which are gonna pop that straw out more by kind of hugging the edge of it. We're still gonna make that straw darker with some black, but that helps to give it a little form. And put a little bit down at the edge here. I don't think this is quite as bright down here, but I just feel like it needs a little something there, so we'll drop that in. Same thing kind of at the edge of the drink here. It's probably not really that bright, but I just want to separate that. And actually, we've got some little bright kind of reflections in the drink here that we could put in with that color. Why not? Hi, Robin. Thank you. All right, kind of squinting at my image, looking at what else it needs, and I noticed that the left side of the green cup has a little bit more of a cool green to it. So the darkest part of the glass of the cocktail is like right here in the center. But the left side is a tiny bit, it's a tiny bit cooler and maybe a little bit lighter. I'm going to make a new green that's going to be just a shade cooler on that left side. So I'm going to make it with phthalo green blue shade. I'll find a spot to do it. Yeah, I can do it right here. Phthalo green blue shade and white. And a little bit of Hansa Yellow Opaque. And then we need to dull it a bit, so I'm going to put a little bit of Alizarin Crimson in there. Need a little more yellow. I'm going to put some Glazing Medium in there. A little more white. This is a little too cool, so I think I need to add more yellow to it. So again, this is Hansa Yellow Opaque, Phthalo Green Blue Shade, Titanium White, and Payne's Gray, and Glazing Medium. And I'm going to put some of this along the left side. It might be a bit too minty, but I kind of like it, so I'm going to use it. Just gives like added dimension. Yeah, I like that. Maybe I'll put a little reflection of it up there. And I do see it kind of in the stem here. See this color reflecting? Yes, I do. We see a little bit of it in the base. I need to probably give a little more attention to the base. I haven't done much there. I need a smaller brush for that, that's why. And let's drop some of this into the background too. We've got some cool areas in the background that we can use this color. And yeah, this is gonna look kind of play off nicely with all these warm tones in the background. Yeah. All right. Let's put that black straw in because that is missing and we need that. So let's make our black. We're going to use Payne's Gray and Alizarin Crimson for the black. That's kind of my standard black recipe. I never buy black paint. I always make like kind of an inky purple for my black because it is just prettier. Elena says it's in the leaf. Yeah, you're right, Elena. It's in the leaf. You should put it in there. I'll see if I get to it. Trying to keep these demos done by 6, but we'll see. Okay, so I've got my nice dark black. I'm gonna get kind of tight in here. Like I mentioned, we need to be pretty specific when we're painting the straw. That makes such a difference, putting that in there dark. And then we've got like this light edge that comes down where it bends. Comes back again and comes out. Totally, that made it better. Is missing that focal point of the funky straw. Okay, and then I gotta make the inside of the straw. Yes, that helps. Okay, and actually let's use this nice dark that we've got, and we've got a small brush, or at least I do, and we're going to put this edge, the bottom edge of the coaster, because that is really dark, and I think that will help to anchor it by putting that in there. Getting that in pretty close to where it's supposed to be. Okay, and then let's look and see, where else do we see really dark? I see in the neck here of the cocktail, I see this rounded shape that comes up along the edge that's really dark, so I'm going to put that in with this black. I see kind of a little bit going up along the stem that's pretty dark. Sorry if you're seeing my hair in here, but it's hard for me to get in unless I get a little bit closer. I always try to tell people to stay further away from their painting, but sometimes you just got to get in there to get the detailed parts just right. But you don't need to put all the details in because then it takes it away. It takes away the important parts when you put all the details in. Let's put a few little chunks of dark down in the base here. Try to keep the arc of the base of the glass, trying to keep that consistent so it doesn't get distorted, which is easy to do when you've got all these little shapes bopping around. But you guys will have more time at home. All right, let's get in there. Okay, I think we need to put some of the brightest white highlights in. I like to kind of save those for towards the end. So I'm going to, before I do that though, I'm gonna put some pops of phthalo blue and white because you guys know I love to do that. So I'm gonna make a bright blue with phthalo blue green shade and white. And then we'll put our brightest whites in. Phthalo blue green shade, super, super intense. We're just gonna use a tiny bit of it, but it's a really fun color and I think it's gonna look good with the other colors that we've got going on here. So we're gonna put some of this fun stuff in. Okay, so we have some fun with this in the background here. I don't know what this shape is, but I see some little blue bits around it and I'm gonna roll with it. I like it. And then I'm going to put some around my lime. Got some of that kind of playing around up here. Oh, we should drop some of it along the edge of the glass here to pull out that edge. Again, we want to make sure that arc of the glass is consistent, that we're really paying close attention to that shape in the reference image, that this arc doesn't get kind of wonky shaped. We're almost done with the final paint along of the season. It's crazy. So I will make sure that you guys are notified when we start this back up again in August. But if you want to make sure that you get notified, you need to be on my email list because those are the people that find out about these and get the invitations to download everything. So if you are not on my email list, you are going to want to head over to my website, allykstudio.com, and jump on that email list so that you can find out about these, that you won't miss out when we start back up again in August. I maybe am getting carried away with this blue. I have a problem with that. I just really like the blue and then I want to put it everywhere. And I always tell you guys don't do that because then it loses its impact. If you find a color that is working and you're like, this is doing a great thing, I should put it everywhere, and then the great thing isn't so great anymore. So I'm going to try not to, but I still need to get a little bit of it in the bottom of the glass because it's definitely there. That'll help me to kind of find some of these shapes. Where else do I see it? Oh, maybe the edge of the coaster here. Whoop. Got a little carried away there. Elena says, have you thought of little birds in August? You know, I have thought about doing birds because that kind of like works nicely with like the floral series. That's not a bad idea. I will make note of that. I have not decided what the next series theme will be, but I'm totally open to suggestions. So keep them coming if you guys have got some. All right, so now I said after we put those blues in, then we're gonna go in with like the almost straight white. So I'm just gonna use the same puddle of blue, but I'm just gonna add dump a ton of white in there so that it's gonna be almost straight white. It's gonna be just tinted the littlest bit with the phthalo blue, and then we'll put the brightest pops into this piece, and then we're gonna call it done. Kathy, you like the idea of birds? Yeah, you guys, let me know if you want birds. Let me know in the comments. We'll kind of go with like what people are voting for most. And maybe that's what I will do, is like a poll with some different suggestions and let you guys vote. Okay, almost straight white. Where are we gonna put it? I see it needs to go in the background here because you see how bright that was, and we didn't have it that bright, or at least I didn't. So I realized I needed to pump that up. Where else do I see it? Oh, there's this big bright white reflection in the stem that I didn't do. And yeah, right here. Gotta get those big chunks of white accurate. This is gonna help me to kind of shape up that stem too by putting these large chunks in. Oh, I keep rubbing my arm in the paint. I don't know, does anybody else ever get like all your paint right here? And then sometimes I'll go like for a few days and not catch it in the shower and you don't see it right there. It's like painter's life, struggles. All right. I'm always covered in paint. All right, so some chunks in the background. That looks really bright right here. Looks pretty bright. The edge of that table is pretty bright. We want to make sure that the table picks up in the right place on the other side. I can see I need to come up a little bit because you want to keep aware of the arc of the table and having that be consistent behind the glass. So if your table's too high on one side, it doesn't pick up on the right side over here, then it's going to look weird. Can't see who that is. I'm looking at your comments here. Who is that? Robin says, we'll miss the Monday night paint-alongs. Excited to start features and faces while you are gone. Yes, Robin, I'm excited for you. I'm so glad that you took advantage of the intro pricing on that class, that you jumped in. Yeah, and maybe that'll give the rest of you, since we're taking some time away from the paint-alongs, this would be a good time to jump in and do that class. I promise you, you will not regret it. You're gonna love it. So my online courses are like a whole other beast. Paint-alongs are very much like whatever pops into my head. It's very impromptu. There's no planning, which is really fun. But my online classes are meticulous. And if any of you that are watching have taken any of my online classes, you can probably attest to this, where I go over it with a fine-tooth comb in the instructions to make sure that I am making it as easy for you to tackle as possible. So I do a lot of like still frames of the painting as I'm working, you know, a close-up detail shot so you can see exactly what I'm doing, and then you can stop and kind of paint at your own speed and follow along with the demo. I make it really easy for you. There is a whole lot of planning that goes into them. Kathy says the digital one is wonderful. Awesome, thank you, Kathy. So that's my digital editing class, where I teach how to use some programs like Photoshop and PixArt to help make really good reference images to paint from, to make it easier for yourself. I'm all about easy. All right. I think we have come to the time in the demo where we need to, one more thing, we need some orange tones in here because there's some orange tones in the back, there's some orange tones in the lime, and I just really want to put them in. So, okay, I'm going to put a little bit of yellow, a little bit of Pyrrole Red Light. I'm gonna wrap it up. I know I'm over 6. Pyrrole Red Light, yellow, and a little bit of white. And yeah, that's what we need. Just need to drop these little orangey peach tones in there, and then we can be done with paint-alongs for the season. Okay, so where do we see that? I see it on the edge of the glass here. Oh, I need to push my edge in. I got a little off on the edge of my glass. I was rushing. Okay. Edge of the glass, a little bit in our lime, and then we see kind of in the background some little bits of that orange. Just needed something. Oh, and in the glass, there's a little bit of it in the glass. The shape of the stem coming along here. You guys could probably spend days painting the reflections in this glass. Don't do it. Don't kill yourself to try to make all these reflections just right, because it's not going to matter in the long run. I got to clean up that edge right there. It's a matter of getting like the essence of the shape and not putting every single reflection in, because I don't want you to drive yourself crazy and get burned out and stop painting. You don't want to do that. All right, now we can call it done. All right, I'm gonna show you guys a little close up there of how mine turned out. Well, maybe I'll tweak it just a bit. We'll see, but I'm pretty happy with it. I hope that you are happy with yours. And yeah, just one more time. This is the final paint along of the summer season. Won't be over forever, but taking a little break. So I'm gonna come back in August, come back strong. But in the meantime, be sure to check out my new course. Don't miss out on the intro pricing. If you wanna get into that course, Features and Faces, you need to enroll by Thursday. And I don't want you guys to miss out on that. So, all right, have a great night, everybody. Take care and happy painting.